What have you been putting off? I'm not talking about the fence post out back that needs resetting, or the gutters you kept meaning to clean in September. I'm talking about the thing that wakes you up at 3 in the morning and will not let go. The call you haven't made, the words you haven't said, the person you've been meaning to sit down with and just tell the truth to, someday, when the moment is right. I'm 76 years old. Born in Wilson Hollow, West Virginia, in November of 1949, and I have lived within 5 miles of that spot my whole life. Buried my wife Martha in the spring of 2022. Buried my son Caleb in October of 2009. Buried my daddy Earl of black lung in 1968 when I was 19. I've got a pocket knife in my front pocket that my daddy pressed into my hand in 1962. I still carry it every day. That knife is older than the doubt I've been living with, and the doubt has been around a long time. My daddy never told me he loved me, not once. And I never told my wife Martha I loved her, not out loud, not in 53 years of marriage. And I could not say my son Caleb's name out loud for 15 years after he was gone. I used to tell myself I was being strong. I was not being strong. I was postponing. That is the word I aim to tell you about tonight. Before I get to what it means and what it cost me, you need to understand who I am and why I am the last person who should be telling you any of this. I am not a wise man. A wise man learns from what other people tell him. I'm a late man, the other kind. I had to go through it myself and lose what I could not afford to lose before the lesson stuck to me. Sit a spell with me tonight, and if this finds you in a place where it matters, say something down in the comments, even a word. Let the next person who finds this know somebody was here before them. I see men of a certain age. Maybe you know them. Maybe you are one. Men in their 60s and 70s who have something important to say and who keep not saying it. I see them in the church pew on Sunday morning, sitting next to the woman they have loved for 40 years and not saying it. I see them at the Thanksgiving table with the children all home and not saying it. I see them at the feed store in town talking about the price of things with the same men they have known for 30 years and not saying it. I don't condemn them. I was one of them for most of my life. Here is what you have to understand about postponing the important thing. It does not feel like fear. That is what makes it so dangerous. Fear you can recognize, the tightness, the wanting to leave the room, the cold sweat at 2 in the morning. Postponing doesn't feel like any of that. Postponing feels like wisdom. It feels like patience. It feels like waiting for the right moment. And men of my generation were raised on a code that told us patience was a virtue, and that the right moment, if we waited long enough, would arrive on its own. That is not wisdom. That is habit. There is a difference between patience and postponing, and the difference is this. Patience holds something steady while it waits. Postponing sets the thing down where you can't see it and tells itself it'll come back for it. You do not always come back for it. I see men who used to could look at the hard thing directly and face it, but somewhere past 60 they lost the door to it. Good men, steady men, men who kept every promise they made except the one they owed themselves and the people they loved. Men who were so good at doing what needed doing that they forgot to name what needed naming. The code taught us that love is shown through labor. You split the wood, you fixed the fence. You kept the roof on and the table full, and you worked through the hard winters without complaining. That was love, real love, daily and honest and stubborn. But it was a translation. It was not the word itself. And the people who needed the word did not always know how to read the translation as clearly as we believed they did. That is not a character flaw. It is a code with a gap in it. A code that taught generations of men in these mountains to carry the heavy thing and keep walking, but never to set it down long enough to look at it and name what it was. The right moment for the important thing does not arrive on its own. You have to make it. And if you spend 60 years waiting for it to come, it will come. It will arrive one morning at the end, and the person you were going to say it to will already be gone. I aim to tell you about that morning before we're done tonight. But first, let me tell you where the silence came from. My daddy Earl used to put up 6 cords of wood every fall. He'd start in August and wouldn't stop until he had 6 cords lined up by the woodshed, enough for a hard winter with 2 cords left over. He never explained why 6 and not 4. He just did it. I was 12 or 13 when I asked him about it. We were out there one Saturday morning, him on the splitting maul, and me stacking beside him. I said, "Daddy, how come you split so much? We never use all of it." He set the maul down against the block. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "A man does what needs doing. He don't talk about it." Then he picked the maul back up. I believed that for 60 years. I showed Daniel and Caleb every day what a man who does what needs doing looks like. My daddy's pocket knife in my pocket. My daddy's code in my chest. My daddy's silence passed down, like any other tool a father gives a son. My daddy was not a cold man. I want to be plain about that. Earl Wilson was not cold, and he was not withholding, and he was not unkind. He was a man who had been handed one language for love, and that language was work. His own daddy had handed it to him, who had been handed it before, going back to men I never knew. The 6 cords of wood was Earl saying, "I will not let my family freeze." He was saying it as clearly as he knew how. What he could not say, what nobody in his line had ever been taught to say, was the word itself. That is the cord of wood in this story. A man stacks it to say what he cannot name. The people he loves stay warm, and the word stays in the woodshed. You don't know it's missing until the man is gone. The wood is still stacked. The word is still in the woodshed. Martha used to stand at the kitchen window and watch me split wood. She'd watch for a while, then go back to what she was doing. I think now she was watching because it was the closest she could get to being with me in the thing I couldn't say. I'm going to tell you about a morning in late October 2024, a first frost morning. The ridge was white, Spruce Creek still running, ice at the edges. Martha used to say on mornings like that, "The mountain's wearing its good coat today." I had not heard that in 2.5 years. That morning I stood on the back porch with my coffee and said her name out loud, Martha. Then I said Caleb's name, my son's name, for the first time in 15 years. Then I went inside and sat at the kitchen table and did not move for 2 hours. In those 2 hours I understood something. I'm going to tell you what it was. But first I need you to meet some men I know. I knew a man named Henry, neighbor of mine, lives about half a mile down from the hollow, 71 years old. His wife Clara passed about 4 years back, and Henry has been eating breakfast alone ever since at a kitchen table that used to seat 4, him, Clara, and their 2 boys. Both boys grown and gone, one in Pittsburgh, one in Columbus. Henry has been meaning to tell his son Ray that he's proud of him. Hasn't ever said it directly. Not in 43 years of Ray's life. He told me this one afternoon on his porch, just the 2 of us. Said he keeps meaning to, keeps waiting for the right moment. Last fall, Ray drove up for Thanksgiving, stayed 3 days. I saw Henry the week after and asked him how it went. He looked out toward the ridge for a long time. He said, "We were just about to get there, and then the grandkids got loud and it got away from me. I'll get 'em at Christmas." He didn't say it at Christmas. He told me in January. Said, next time for sure. Frank Mullins, my oldest friend in this world, 77 years old, calls me every Tuesday and Friday morning at 7. Frank says he and his son are the same way. They talk about the weather and the price of feed and what the neighbors are up to. And when they hang up, Frank says they covered everything. He says it the same way every time. I know what he means by it. He means they covered everything except the thing. That is what every man over 60 should stop postponing. Not the wood, the word. It will not say itself. There will always be a next time for Henry and Ray. Until one morning, there won't be. I knew a man named Wendell Ferguson. He taught English and history at the high school in Marlinton for 32 years. Lost his wife Patricia about 8 years ago. He said something to me at the hardware store last spring that I have not been able to set down. He said that 6 months after Patricia passed, he sat down at his kitchen table and wrote her letters. By hand. 3 pages the first night. Took him 4 hours. Things he had never said to her while she was alive. 34 years worth of unsaid things. He wrote until he ran out of paper, and then he kept writing. I asked him what he did with the letters. He took them to the cemetery and read them out loud to her. He cried for the first time since the funeral. He said, "Pap, it don't fix it, but it's better than nothing. It's the closest thing to saying it that I've got left now." That ain't grief, what Wendell was doing. That is reclamation. Grief you carry because you have to. What Wendell was doing was going back for what he'd set down and left behind, finding it still there, still worth saying, even to a stone on the hillside, even too late, even at the end of everything. I understood it when he said it. I didn't tell him why. I understood because I had done the same thing myself. Not at a grave, at a kitchen table, on a yellow legal pad, in the months after the first frost morning. Then there was Hollis Bright, my hunting partner for 30 years, quail and woodcock, up in the high country north of here. Hollis was 6 years older than me, died of a heart attack at 68, out on his back 40, on a Tuesday morning in April. His old red-bone hound was out there with him. They said the dog wouldn't leave his side when they found him. Hollis was not the silent kind, not the way I was. He was easier with words than most men around here. He knew what he ought to say to his wife Nora and to his daughters. He talked about getting to it. He would say, "I need to sit down and have a real talk with Nora about some things." He'd been saying some version of that for 15 years. I talked to him about 6 weeks before he died. Early spring, the two of us standing at the edge of his field. He said to me, "I'm fixing to have a long talk with Nora. Things we've been putting off too long." I said, "Don't wait too long." He laughed. He said, "We've got time, Pap." He was fixing to. He was always fixing to. Nora told me at the funeral that she'd known for 15 years what he meant to say. She said she knew it. She didn't need him to say it to know it. But she said, "Pap, it would have been real nice to hear it, just once, out loud." Knowing is not the same as hearing. Knowing keeps a person warm the way the wood does. Hearing warms them from the inside. There is a difference, and it took me 75 years to find it. Now I want to say something about myself, because I have been standing here telling you about Henry and Wendell and Hollis as if I were watching from the outside. I was not. I was looking at myself in all 3 of them. 53 years with Martha, and not once said the words out loud. Not once in 53 years. Her reading glasses are still on the nightstand where she left them. Her cast iron skillet is still on the stove. Her empty chair at the kitchen table is still pulled close to the stove, the way she always had it in winter. I have not moved any of it. I live among the objects of a woman I loved in every way except the one she deserved to hear. And Daniel, my son Daniel in Charlotte, 56 years old, calls every first Sunday at 4 in the afternoon. 23 minutes, steady as the tide. I have not told him what he means to me. I've been planning to. I keep meaning to do it the next time he calls. There is a word for what I have been doing. For 60 years I called it strength. For 30 years before that I called it patience. The word is postponing, not silence. Silence is what gets chose for you, and you go along with it. Postponing is different. Postponing is what you choose. Every morning you wake up and don't say the thing. Every morning you're choosing. You're choosing to say it tomorrow. And tomorrow becomes a stack of tomorrows that becomes 53 years, that becomes your friend lying in a field in April, fixing to finally get to it. The inheritance gave us the code. But every day past a certain age that you carry it, knowing what it costs, that is not the inheritance anymore. That is the choice. There is something I ought to mention before I let you go tonight. I almost don't want to bring it up. Ruth Ann would be mad at me if I didn't, so I will say it briefly. About a year after Martha passed, I started writing letters, not on a computer, by hand, at this kitchen table. Letters to her. Letters to my boy Caleb. Letters to my daddy, who died of black lung in 1968, before I ever told him what he meant to me. Letters to my brother Curtis, killed in Vietnam at 24. Letters I should have given when there was still somebody to give them to. I called it the things we don't say. Letters I should have given when there was still somebody to give them to. I wasn't going to show them to a soul. They were mine. Then my daughter Ruth Ann brought me supper one Wednesday evening, saw the box sitting on the kitchen table, and before I could stop her, she sat out on the back porch and read 3 of them. She cried out there about 20 minutes, came back inside and said, "Daddy, you gotta let other people see these. There's mamas out there. There's widows out there. They need to read these." She said it with her mother's stubbornness, the same look Martha used to get when a thing was settled, and she just hadn't told me yet. I said no for about 3 months. Ruth Ann wore me down. She has her mother's patience, which is really just another word for she was going to win. A woman named Eunice in Tennessee, 78 years old. She read an early copy, sat down with her husband of 51 years that very night, told him things she'd never said out loud. He cried like a child, she said. Then they sat on the porch together and watched the dark come in. A woman named Mabel in Kentucky, 81 years old, lost her husband 9 years ago. She wrote her own letters to him after she read the book, took them to the cemetery one Sunday morning and read them out loud. Said it was the first time she had cried in 7 years. And Verna in Ohio, 74 years old. Her son hadn't called her in 2 years. She wrote him a letter, the kind I describe in the book, mailed it. He called her the day he got it. They talked for 2 hours. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She did both. My son Daniel called from Charlotte last week. Said he doesn't think I should have put these out there. Said it's family business. He might be right. I might take it down. So if you're wanting to read it, you might want to look now. The link is in the first pinned comment under this video. It's there if you need it. That's all I'll say about it. Anyway, where was I? Right, I was telling you about the cord of wood. Every fall I still put up wood. I do it alone now. It takes me longer than it used to. I used to could get a cord done in half a day. And now I take breaks I didn't used to need. But I still do it. Some things are worth doing even when they're slower than they were. And there is still something in the splitting and the stacking that feels like talking to the people who aren't there anymore. But I know something now that I did not know for 60 years. The cord of wood is not enough on its own. It never was. The wood keeps the body warm. The word keeps the rest of you warm. If you have been stacking the wood all your life and calling it enough, the people who love you probably know. They know the labor is how you've been saying it. But knowing is not hearing. There is a difference. Like I said, the letters are in the pinned comment if you need them. If you're listening to me tonight, friend, if you are sitting somewhere with the thing you've been meaning to say still inside you, still waiting on the right moment, I want you to hear me. I'm not asking you to make a speech. I am asking you to say one true thing before the year is out, to one person who needs to hear it. That's all. One true thing, before the frost comes again, before the next Sunday phone call, before the moment gets away from you the way it got away from Henry, the way it got away from Hollis, the way it got away from me for 53 years. Spruce Creek is still running tonight. It runs under the ice in January. It runs under the dark. It runs the way it always has and always will. The mountain is going to get its good coat again in October. I'll be here when it does. Don't set the important thing down where you can't find it. Don't let another year go and call the postponing patience. I am a late man, friend. Don't you be one too.